I've spent well over 6 months using Pixel phones, and now that 2024's Pixels are finally out, hopefully my experience with these two phones so far can help you decide which one you should buy. The first advantage of the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL is price. The Pixel 9 Pro retails at $1,000 or $1,100 for the XL model. That's $800 to $700 less expensive than the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. The number 2 advantage the pros have over the 9 Pro Fold is their camera system, which is the same on both sizes this year. The 9 Pro and Pro XL have higher megapixel telephoto and ultra-wide cameras than the ones on the Pro Fold. What exactly does that mean in practice? Well, the telephoto, for example, looks more crisp on the 9 Pros than the Pro Fold. You can also get the 50 megapixel images with all 3 cameras on the Pro, and it's a feature not offered on the Fold at all, even for its main wide camera. And that is something that I'd personally miss having. I've mainly shot in the 50 megapixel mode on my trip to Iceland and Ireland last month, and I really appreciated having those higher resolution images, especially for the telephoto. It allows you to crop in even more and see more detail, like the eyes on this raven, for example. The selfie camera is also not as large on the Fold, and it doesn't do well in low light, though the Pixel Fold does have an advantage of being able to use its rear camera system as the selfie camera, which will blow any regular selfie camera out of the water. As far as smartphone camera systems go, while they all now have a tendency to overprocess images, the Pixel is still my favorite. Why? Well, out of all the phones I test every year, Google still have a bit more contrast, and importantly, they let you have shadows, and the saturation isn't blown out to hell like Samsung defaults to. Out of all the phones I test, Pixels I would say generally just take photos that look like the actual thing I was trying to take a photo of the most. Yes, of course, there are going to be corner cases where the photos it produces still look a bit too over-processed, like this one, for example. That rock wall had way more shadows on it in real life than show up in this photo. And this year, the Pixel team redid the entire HDR Plus pipeline with the goal of having it capture the thing you're looking at as you remember it. HDR Plus is the default image processing for all photos, though annoyingly, Google seems to turn on Ultra HDR by default, which if you have that enabled and you look at a photo you took with that mode on, your phone screen is going to brighten every time you want to see that photo. Now, the reason I'm bringing up these changes in camera processing is even though yes, the 9 Pro and Pro XL have better camera hardware, regarding how the images are processed, both phones handle them equally well and have that updated HDR Plus pipeline. Another advantage of the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL is the larger battery. Spec-wise, the battery is slightly larger in the 9 Pro than the 9 Pro Fold. The 9 Pro XL, however, has a significantly larger battery, and in my experience so far, the 9 Pro XL's battery has lasted longer. Now, so far, both of these phones have been able to last me all day when I've used them as my main phone, and that's typically light to moderate use. Typically, I only use a phone for about 2 to 3 hours of screen time per day, and then 1 to 2 hours of background activity for music and podcasts. Now, if you're a heavy phone user, the Pro Fold might end up depleting the battery before the end of the day, depending on how heavy of a user you are and if you didn't turn Extreme Battery Saver on, which is rated to keep the Fold running for 72 hours and up to 100 on the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL. You also don't get the ability to battery share on the Fold like you do with the 9 Pro and Pro XL. The next advantage I'd give the 9 Pro and Pro XL is durability. The inner display of the Fold is more fragile than most other phone displays. It has a pre-installed protected film, but you do have to keep it away from sand, crumbs, and other sharp objects that could puncture it. I've been very careful with mine. I've barely even taken it outside all that much, and I still have noticed dents on the interior screen, which can happen when you close the phone and dust was on the screen that you didn't see, or if your fingernail hit part of the screen, that can cause it too. Now, thankfully, it's not something I've noticed when the screen is on, but it's definitely something you notice when it isn't. The speakers are another advantage I found with my 9 Pro XL. The sound is a bit more harsh from the Fold speakers compared to the 9 Pro XLs, which sound a bit more full, likely due to the more room they have to work with inside the phone's body compared to the Fold speakers. And the last advantage I have to give the 9 Pro and Pro XL is weight. The Pixel 9 Pro weighs 199 grams, the 9 Pro XL weighs 221 grams, and the Pro Fold weighs 257 grams, so considerably more than the other two phones. However, in my experience so far with the Fold, where I really notice this is when it's folded and it's actually just in my pocket. While holding the phone itself, because it's a bit thicker when folded and smaller than my XL, it's actually very manageable, much more so than I was expecting. And when you unfold it, the weight is distributed pretty evenly, and I don't find it cumbersome to hold at all unfolded. It's actually a pretty great little tablet to read on. It's an 8-inch display, and considering a device like the iPad mini is only a bit larger at 8.2 inches, it weighs quite a bit more at 297 grams. So now let's talk about the Fold and why you'd want to spend more money on a phone with a slightly worse camera system. The most obvious and number one advantage of the Fold is that inner display. Now, that's not the only display though. When folded, the Pro Fold actually has the same 6.3 Super Actua display that's found on the Pixel 9 Pro. Though it's not an LTPO display on the front like you've got with the 9 Pro and Pro XL, and what that means is this display can't ramp its refresh rate down to 1 Hz to preserve battery life. So now moving on to the larger display, like what exactly is the advantage of having this display? What can you actually use it for? When you want to read something, get work done, watch videos, or look at two apps side by side, the larger display just makes it easier to do those types of tasks on your phone compared to the smaller screen sizes of the 9 Pro and Pro XL. I found myself over the past several weeks gravitating towards the Fold over my 9 Pro XL, especially when I'm at home. And another thing I really like about it is actually the action of just being able to close its screen. Some may find this dumb, but when you close it, I think it's kind of a subtle cue to yourself to be like, okay, I'm done with my phone now for a bit. The only time I think I'd really prefer the 9 Pro and Pro XL's form factor is when I'm out and about. I prefer to shoot with the 9 Pro XL because of that better camera system. Now, is the crease that big of a deal? Yes and no. Like if you've got some lights and stuff behind you, you will notice it, but most of the time when I look at the screen dead on, I can't see it. Even if you do have some lights behind you, you kind of just tune it out as you use the product anyways, and the advantage of having the larger screen still outweighs the sometimes noticing reflections in the crease. The only real downside I found with the screen is either the pixel per inch density of the display, or it's got some coating on it. Something needs to be a bit adjusted because you can see this little pattern on the display when looking at it up close. That's my only real complaint so far. And somewhat related to the larger screen is the number 2 advantage I'd give to the Fold, which is the coolness and newness factor. Now, if you live outside of the US, this may not be as much of a factor for you because you've likely had access to a foldable with these particular dimensions, but this is really the first one that's been available in the US that I think has really made quite an impression on people this year, including myself. And if you upgrade to this and show it to your friends and family, it definitely doesn't feel like you just bought another iterative update to last year's phone model. Another thing that gives the Fold that cool and newness factor are the Fold-specific software features. Like having a dock like you do on the Pixel tablet where you can drag apps into split screen, save your favorite pairs, keep the taskbar in view. You can also prop the Fold up on a table to watch YouTube videos on one part of the screen. Then there's the new Made You Look feature. It's kind of a gimmicky feature in some respects given it's using the selfie camera instead of the rear camera system, but I do have to say it does work well if you're in my case and you've got pets, or Leo in fact looked right at the camera to see the cartoon fish, and if you have kids, it's going to be a similar thing. So now let's talk recommendations. Which of these phones do I think you should buy, and can you really justify the price of the 9 Pro Fold? Given the hardware engineering and the overall feel of the 9 Pro Fold, I think yes, you can certainly justify its price given the experience you get with the phone, especially when you factor in you can get to up to around $700 or so when you trade in your phone through the Google Store. Year after year, I see so many comments of people just tired of the experience of their phone. They want to get something different, something new, something exciting, like how when you got a new phone, it used to feel. Well, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is the first phone I've bought in years that has actually felt like that. It completely changes the experience of using a phone, and aside from the slightly worse camera system and speaker setup, everything else about it has felt like an upgrade. You have both a regular-sized phone screen, but also a tablet-sized one in a single device that can fit into your pocket. That's just incredible. Now, even with the trade-in, this is still an expensive phone. And if you're someone who's not really convinced that you're going to benefit from that folding inner screen, or you want a Pro Pixel with a better camera system, or you're worried about the durability of this phone, or you want one that's more water and dust resistant, or you just want a Pro Pixel that costs less, then the 9 Pro and Pro XL is going to be the better option. But if you really like the idea of having the Pixel experience in both a phone and a tablet size, well, there's still something you can do about that. I think if you were mainly going to use the tablet-sized display for when you're around home, you could always just get a Pixel 9 Pro or Pro XL and then a Pixel tablet, which together still wouldn't cost as much as the 9 Pro Fold. Plus, then, when you have a Pixel tablet and its included dock, you get an awesome photo frame when you're not using the tablet, and it's great for home controls as well. And if you want to check out the price of the tablet, as well as the phones and all the other devices I mentioned in this video, to see if any of them have gone on sale, you can do that in our blog post at 6monthslater.net. So all in all, if you're asking me to pick and I had budget for either phone, I would pick the 9 Pro Fold based on my experience so far. I just love having that larger screen with me everywhere I go, and for me, I don't necessarily care as much about having the best camera system in a phone, since I've really transitioned to carrying a camera with me for important stuff where I really want high quality photos anyway. And for everything else, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold's camera system is adequate for my needs. And if you want to see more of my thoughts on the dedicated point-and-shoot camera I mentioned earlier, you can get to my review of the Fuji X100VI here, and to see all of my other videos of Pixel products, like my review of the Pixel tablet, you can get to all of those videos by clicking on the thumbnail here. If you like this video, you found it helpful, make sure you hit that thumbs up button below and subscribe to the channel to see my upcoming reviews of the 9 Pro Fold and 9 Pro XL. And if you have either of those phones or you have other Pixel devices, let me know what you think of them. Would you buy it again? Let me know in the comments. For 6 months later, I'm Josh Tedder. Thanks for watching.